Welcome to Connecting Africa, the show that highlights the leaders and trailblazers connecting the continent through business. I'm Eleni Giakos. From environmentally friendly dual-fueled cargo vessels to shipbuilding and developments in trade around Lake Victoria, this month we are looking at all things maritime. A vast majority, as much as 90% of exports from and into Africa are transported by sea. And minerals account for an average of 70% of total African exports, strategically positioned on one of the world's major shipping routes and in close proximity to the country's biggest iron ore mines. Saldanha Bay is an important deepwater port on the west coast of South Africa and a prime location from which to export iron ore. Today, the Ubuntu Integrity has birthed here in Saldanha Bay.
Ubuntu Integrity is dual-fuel bulk carrier, and her main engine can burn LNG or low-sulfur fuel oil. LNG is a cleaner fuel than traditional fuel oil, emits less carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases.
As you know, LNG is highly flammable and explosive, so it requires a lot of safety training. The system will automatically supply high pressure to main engine.
The process of switching from traditional diesel to the cleaner liquid natural gas is surprisingly simple and requires just a few clicks on a mouse. The vessel requires specific infrastructure to be able to refill its LNG or liquid natural gas tanks, and it's not available in every port.
As the demand for LNG increases, we may see further development of LNG bunkering facilities and increased supply.
Internationally, the number of dual-fueled vessels is on the increase, albeit slowly.
The challenges of widespread adoption of dual-fuel vessels can be addressed through government support, infrastructure investment, partnerships, standardization, training, and education. As these solutions are implemented, we can expect to see continued growth in the use of dual-fuel technology in the shipping industry.
And joining us now is leading multinational mining company Anglo American's Global Head of Shipping, Peter Lai, to talk to us about this exciting development and the company's strategy to reduce their environmental footprint. And he joins me now. Peter, so good to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us. We visited the Ubuntu Integrity. It's an exciting new vessel. It's dual-fueled. You have a vessel that is 35% more carbon efficient. I want you to tell me about this project because you're planning to have 10 vessels in the seas by the first quarter of 2024.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's a really exciting project for us. To finally see these vessels on the water and delivering our high quality products to our customers around the globe. These vessels are very much linked to our strategy around lowering carbon in our activities and lowering our footprint. These vessels are operating with LNG fuel as opposed to typical diesel fuel oil. They do operate on both systems, but primary system is LNG. And these fuels are low in carbon, and it gives us the ability to deliver our products to our customers in this highly efficient vessel, with a much lower carbon footprint. We have a very ambitious target in terms of what we want to do, not only with our mining operations, but also with our ocean freight. We plan to achieve a 30% reduction by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2040.
The war in Ukraine has obviously created major issues in terms of supply, shot prices up. How has this impacted your business and what you're trying to do?
Certainly, the energy prices have increased quite substantially in recent times since the conflict. And when I look at what we've achieved with the Ubuntu fleet, that is very much a long-term view. It's not just from a carbon perspective, but also from a commercial perspective going forward. And that's something that we'll continue to focus on.
What kind of infrastructure is required at the ports in which you are going to be calling for dual-fueled vessels in terms of storage, in terms of capabilities, and are African ports ready for this?
Look, it is a challenge when it comes to being able to have the right fuel in the right place at the right time for these vessels. They are still relatively new. South Africa has a real opportunity because of its geographical position, and it's something that needs to be further developed, not just in Southern Africa, but more globally.
I want to talk about the intra-African continental free trade area. There's a lot of excitement and, of course, hope that there will be more trade between African countries. And, of course, important part of this is shipping. How do you believe the maritime industry can plug into this policy?
That's something that the company is looking at very closely, particularly in terms of our operations in Southern Africa and the opportunity that exists in the maritime space. I think certainly we see huge opportunities for South Africa in relation to not just the decarbonisation space of ocean freight and production of renewable energy, but also in terms of generating an opportunity for seafarers.
When we come back, we travel further up Africa's west coast to Walvis Bay in Namibia, an important strategically located port and a key export hub for minerals like diamonds, uranium, and salt. Welcome back to Connecting Africa, where this month we're talking all things maritime, from exciting new developments in dual-fueled vessels exporting iron ore from South Africa to a world-class shipyard on Southern Africa's west coast. The Namibian port of Walvis Bay is well positioned to take advantage of the growing demand for maritime services in Southern Africa. Namibia is a shipyard that specializes in the repair and maintenance of vessels from around the world. We spoke with CEO Albertus Carrico about the facility, its growth, and his vision for the future.
In short, we fix ships, we repair ships, right? That is the short answer. As a shipyard, we provide various services to the vessel owners that call our port. So we've got 3 floating docks. The floating docks get submerged in the water, and then we raise the vessels out of the water.
The 3 floating docks can together lift as much as 30,000 tons, making it one of the largest and most advanced shipyards in Africa.
We had vessels from all over the world call our ports for service. The Netherlands, Greece, Brazil, France, to name a few. We work on mechanical, propulsion, electrical, carpentry, and piping and valves. These are the services that we sell.
The Namibia team has extensive experience maintaining and repairing a wide range of vessels, from cargo ships and tankers to offshore support vessels and drilling rigs.
Oil and gas, which is the new buzzword, it's a very exciting time for us. We have people that are well trained to not just only work onshore, but also to be able to work offshore. That requires special skills. There's a lot of opportunities where customers are demanding our services.
The recent discoveries of extensive oil and gas reserves off the Namibian coast suggest there's the likelihood of significant growth in the coming years.
We are at a doorstep of really contributing to the GDP of our country, especially from a shipyard perspective.
Their well-equipped workshops and internationally certified workforce undertake everything from upholstering a captain's chair to repairing vessels damaged at sea. This vessel's bow struck a submerged object, and the repair required removing damaged metal sheets and fabricating replacements in a nearby workshop. Later, these sheets are welded to a supporting structure, after which the vessel can return to sea.
Not only do we repair your vessel, but we also cater for the necessary supplies on the vessel. Our main portfolio is selling labor and selling material. And whatever we cannot cater for, we have supply vendors that provide us with those services. We are also the drivers of the economic and social growth of Walvis Bay and ensuring that we contribute to the economic sustainability of the country.
And Chief Executive Officer Albertus Carrico is confident that the coming years will see an increase in maritime traffic.
The Port of Walvis Bay is strategically located to really benefit from the maritime traffic that we will see in the next 3 to 5 years, probably 10 years. We will not be a bus stop, quote unquote. We will be a port where people load and offload cargo. And while they are waiting, we as a shipyard repair facility will really maximize on those opportunities to make sure that we can service all the vessels that are calling the Port of Walvis Bay.
And while NAMDOC's focus is on the repair and maintenance of a wide range of vessels, their CEO has a clear view around trade from and into Walvis Bay.
We need to focus on the primary sector, meaning that we need to be able to really focus on self-cultivation, manufacturing, where we don't have to import, where we can really build the country from within rather than relying on imports.
NAMDOC is a partnership between the Namibian government and the private sector, and it appears to be working.
Here we are at the doorstep of another Independence Day coming up, and 33 years later, you can see how far the country has come in terms of employee development, the necessary skills that we as a company have provided, not to mention the diversity in the workforce. It is necessary for a port to have a shipyard facility. Our vessels do not need to call ports in South Africa or anywhere else in the world because we provide those skills.
For NAMDOC, for Walvis Bay, and for the nation of Namibia, the future seems bright and full of opportunities there for the taking. When we come back, we travel to the heart of Africa, to Lake Victoria, the largest lake on the continent, to a privately owned Lakeside fuel depot in Uganda, and in Tanzania to get on board with what will be the biggest vessel to sail these waters. Welcome back to Connecting Africa, where this month we're talking to key decision makers in Africa's shipping sector, the leaders who are aiming to develop and grow intra-African trade across the continent. Maritime trade doesn't only take place at sea. Lake Victoria is the largest lake on the continent and plays an important role in the economies of the nations that surround it: Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. According to the African Development Bank, in 2016, the lake provided an income to around 4 million people, along with water for irrigation, hydroelectric power, and transportation. Even then, it was home to a fleet of 70,000 vessels, the majority of them individual fishermen in small boats, but more than 10,000 licensed cargo and passenger vessels operate on the lake. We traveled to Uganda to meet the team behind a $270 million development on the shores of Lake Victoria, the Mahati Fuel Transport and Storage Depot.
Now, to connect Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, and the entire East African region, as you know, the cheapest means of transport anywhere in the world is water transport.
The exact amount of shipping that takes place on Lake Victoria is difficult to determine, but it is estimated that hundreds of boats, ferries, and cargo vessels operate on the lake each day.
Transport is a cost pusher, and the African continent, especially landlocked countries, suffers tremendously from high costs of movement of goods from the sea up to countries that are landlocked. And the availability of transport for us is either by road, air, railway, and possibly water. We want to maximize the logistical opportunity, and that's why we find that this infrastructure reduces the cost of transport by approximately 50%.
Vessels on Lake Victoria transport passengers and various consumer goods, and they also carry fuel.
When you look at solutioning the fuel supply chain, it's all about logistics, it's about hospitality, which is storage, and the supply chain. Bulk transport reduces the cost of fuel. This is a game changer. This is the largest fuel reserves that we've had in this country, which go up to 70 million liters. This will tremendously spur economic growth. We can now be able to move fuel to South Sudan, to Rwanda, to Burundi, and the DRC Congo, which is the eastern part of Congo. That is the opportunity that we have presented to the region.
These countries currently receive most of their fuel and other products by road, which is costly, environmentally unfriendly, and prone to delays. The Lakeside development is one of the largest fuel terminals in East and Central Africa.
We have now built 14 tanks for 70 million liters for diesel, for petrol, for jet A1, and kerosene. We've also built the longest jetty in Lake Victoria.
Fuel arrives from Kisumu, Kenya on barges, which each carry 4.5 million litres. It's offloaded and stored in these tanks before being loaded into tanker trucks through the mobile pumps on the loading gantry for them to transport it on the last stage of its journey. Whilst this development is reducing costs, events half a world away are doing the opposite.
The Russia-Ukraine war has to a large extent affected third world countries. And you know that every time the cost of fuel goes up, it affects the lives of the ordinary people, especially those who are struggling in the African continent or most of the third world. So cost of fuel is one of the big challenges we face.
But the Mahati board chairman is optimistic.
And I see a very bright future for the African continent. Why? Because if you look at, for example, Uganda, we've discovered oil and gas. Kenya has discovered oil. Tanzania and Mozambique have discovered the largest gas deposits in the world in the Indian Ocean. The DRC Congo has discovered oil. All we need to do is build the infrastructure, transform our economy, and stop the exports of these raw materials. The African continent is the only continent or the only people that do not need to import raw materials. We must now ensure that the profits remain in the African continent.
Mukula also believes there are potential opportunities for increased trade across Africa, thanks to the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area.
The agreement which was signed by the African Union is work in progress. We have a lot of work as African countries. China was where Africa is 40, 50 years ago, but they have been able to overcome that. China now is the second largest economy in the world, and we now need to look at a broader approach. How do we ensure that intra-Africa trade is widened? Africa should not be on its knees begging. Africa should be able to trade with the world. We should not be asking the world to help Africa. We need to present Africa with a new paradigm shift. The new thinking will tremendously change our continent.
When we come back from a game-changing development aiming to improve cargo services and to halve freight costs between Uganda and its trading partners, we travel to Mwanza in Tanzania to visit a locally built passenger and cargo vessel that will be the largest to ply the waters of Lake Victoria. Welcome back to Connecting Africa, where this month we're looking at the maritime sector. Lake Victoria is an African icon. It's a trading hub in Central Africa and widely considered to be the source of the Nile, the world's longest river, and itself a trade route for thousands of years. But the lake is not only a way to move goods and fuel between trading partners, it is also home to developing shipbuilding industry. And earlier this year in Mwanza, Tanzania, a locally built cargo and passenger ship was floated that will be the largest on Lake Victoria. This $43 million vessel will serve the 3 East African countries bordering Lake Victoria: Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda.
Definitely the cost of trade will go down because now it will have big capacity to carry more cargo, and obviously the cost will also go down. So you'll have a capacity to carry more passengers as compared to all the vessels that we have now in Lake Victoria. But it's going to be the fastest ship because it will run at 16 knots, which is the fastest in the lake right now. And the fare for passengers will also be affordable.
The vessel was built here in Mwanza, and along with creating jobs and promoting industrial development, building ships locally reduces costs and the delays involved in importing them from other countries. It can also improve the efficiency of intra-African trade by providing vessels that are better suited to regional conditions and to sometimes limited port infrastructure.
So the construction of this vessel began in 2019, January. We should be able to have the ship completed 100% by August this year, and thereafter we'll start operations.
The ship will have the capacity to carry 1,200 passengers, including national leaders, VIPs, first, second, and business class passengers. It will weigh 3,500 tons and stands 4 stories high. The project required international cooperation, which was key in an undertaking of this scale.
You can't be operating in isolation because we have not done this kind of big ship building in Tanzania. This is the first time we're doing it.
The development of modern maritime transportation infrastructure is crucial for increasing intra-African trade and connecting African countries more effectively.
We have direct access through the Indian Ocean to Asia. We have these Great Lakes, which can be a passage to, I would say, 7 land-linked countries that we border, including Southern Sudan, because Southern Sudan is also a market that can be served.
The vessel will also sail routes that are currently not being adequately serviced.
This ship will open up new routes between Uganda and Tanzania, giving opportunity to people to trade now between countries. But it will also as well go to Kisumu, so it will open up to Kenya as well. So I'm seeing it as a ship that will bring about transformation to passengers and traders and open up more opportunities to them. We border the biggest market in East and Central Africa, the DRC, with 99 million people. And the Eastern Congo, for that matter, all that market is potentially our market, which can be served through Tanzania as a gateway. All this need ferries, all this need ships. So if we build more ships, we'll be able to cut cost of doing business in Tanzania and we'll be able to ferry a lot of cargo into neighboring countries. We as Marine Services Company Limited, we really have to pose ourselves as a national shipping line to see how we're going to contribute towards that wing of the economy.
And there is optimism in Mwanza at the enormous potential for growth.
Ferries, ships, you cannot avoid them in Tanzania. We are seeing a lot of potential in building the ferries. We are supposed to build 9 new ships and we want to rehabilitate 11. Lake Victoria is huge. We still have a lot of routes to unveil. So I'm seeing big potential in Lake Victoria and I'm encouraging people to invest. With the government commitment that we are seeing right now, we are poised for bigger things.
Well, that's it for this month's Connecting Africa. If you want to know more about the subjects that we cover on this program, you can check out our website. Until next month, from me, Eleni Jakas, let's keep on connecting.